My name is Josh Geretsma. I'm with Bay City Electric Works, the Kohler distributor for Southern California. Today I'll be doing some training on the generator. It's an 80 kW diesel powered generator. We'll be going over the engine, some basic electrical, and the controls. We'll also be going over the transfer switch and the remote annunciator. Okay, so up front we have our engine up here. The generator is on the back side here with the controls right here. All right, so the basics for the engine, you have your dipstick right here to check your oil. You're gonna wanna check your oil anytime you come out and run it, or just once a month. Get that back in there. All right, and then check your coolant. Radiator cap is up top there on the far side. You want to check that anytime you run, as long as the engine's not hot. If the engine is hot, do not open the radiator cap because you will burn yourself. So yeah, just check that, once a month or whenever you come out and run it, as long as the engine is cool. There is a block heater installed on here. It's going to keep the engine at about 100 degrees, 120 degrees when it's not running. So just always check to make sure the engine's slightly warm when you come out here and check it, just to make sure that's operating properly. You have oil filter here, and then 2 fuel filters here, and then a crankcase filter in here. You just want to change these once a year or every 250 hours, whichever comes first, which will probably be once a year. And this guy, you just need to check it once in a while. There's an air filter, which is probably kind of hard to see, but there's an air filter right here that you also want to check when you change all your filters. That doesn't need to be replaced quite as often, just when it's dirty. Other than that, there's a primer pump here for when you service. You got to prime up the diesel fuel system or else it'll suck air and it will not start. So if you ever have any problems with it not starting, there is a primer pump there to purge the air out of the system. You want to check your belt. You have your belt up here. It's kind of hard to get to and see, but you can get a flashlight and you can see it pretty decent, or you can take off one of these panels so you can actually check tension and get a good inspection on the belt. Other than that, you just always want to check for leaks, any coolant, oil, anything like that. You'll see it on the ground. It's pretty clean down there, so it's easy to see if you have any leaks. Other than that, there's not too much serviceable stuff, that just typical service stuff on this side of the engine. There is a fuel gauge down here that actually feeds the controller the information, so you actually can see the fuel level on the controller. But yeah, it's actually, you can see it is a gauge and you can read it from here too. Right here we have our battery charger. It's in float mode right now, but it keeps the battery charged, because when it's not running, the battery will discharge because it's always monitoring, the controller's always powered up. So it has a battery charger to keep the battery from dying. It should always be basically it's got these LEDs here that indicate the status of it. Right now everything is green. AC power's there, it's in float mode. But you'll know if it's not working because you'll have alarms here, and you'll also have alarms up here if it's not working. So you just always want to just take a good glance at this and make sure that everything's green and it's all working. Right here you have your AC breakers for the generator. These feed your transfer switches. So if you're ever not getting any power to transfer switch, the only thing you really need to check is if one of these is tripped or off. That's basically the only thing you can really just check, is to make sure it's not off or tripped. Here's our actual controller. It's kind of like built like a radio, I guess you could say. It has a little dial here that you could scroll through the menus, and then to choose a menu you just click it, and then you're in that menu, and you can continue scrolling through that menu, and then you just go all the way to the end of the menu until you see return, and then you click it again, and then you're back to the main menu. You have overview, which is where it typically is. It just scrolls through, the base. It gives you your hours. If it's running, it'll give you oil pressure, temperature, and voltage and all that. And then if you go to engine, click on it, it's more specific. The engine's running, it gives you your engine speed, oil pressure, coolant temp, and your fuel levels right there, and battery voltage. And then if you go to generator, once your generator's running, you're not going to see any information on here if it's not running, obviously. You'll have your voltage line to line for all 3 phases, and then line to neutral. And if you're pulling any amperage, you can see it right here. It's basically just all the information on your generator side. If there's any faults, you're going to see them on this screen. For an example, here's e-stop. It's going to red because it's a shutdown. It's going to alarm. If you can hear that, it's not too loud, but it will alarm, and you can silence it with that. And then it just says emergency stop shutdown. Any shutdowns you have, to clear them, you need to remove the source of the alarm, which in this case is pull your e-stop back out, hit off, which is also reset, and then you can go back into automatic. So you always want it to be an automatic with a green light, no shutdown alarms on it. So always an automatic. As you saw earlier, just put it to off, that's off. And then you can go back to auto, and then you can also hit run, and that will turn the generator on and run it, which we can just do that real quick right now. All right, and that's how you run it from the generator itself. You just hit run, and then to turn it off, you just hit off again, or you can hit emergency stop, whatever you prefer, I guess. Right now, we actually do have a fuel level warning. The fuel level's a little high. We're gonna burn some fuel off when we do some testing, so that won't always be there. But as you can see, for a warning alarm, this light is just amber. That's not a shutdown alarm. A shutdown alarm is gonna be red. See how it turns to red there? That's a shutdown alarm. All right. Okay, so here we are on the other side of the engine. There's not too much serviceable components over here. Basically, the only thing you would check over here is gonna be your battery, which the charger is on the other side, and that's really going to tell you the condition of your battery if it's getting low. The charger is what maintains the battery. You do want to test the battery, you know, when you do your preventative maintenance on it. It's maintenance free, so you can't actually check the level of the electrolyte in the cells, but you can put a tester on it and test it to make sure it is good. Make sure your connections are tight, not corroded, anything like that. You know, same on the starter side over here. Make sure it's not corroded or loose or anything. Yeah, that's basically it on this side. You do have your starter, your turbo, exhaust, and all that, your fuel pump and your common rail, all that, but that's not really serviceable. So basically the only thing on this side that's serviceable is going to be the battery. Okay, so here we are at the transfer switch. There are 3 transfer switches on site. They're all the same brand. The only difference is the size a little bit, but they're all basically the same. There's really not much you could do with these unless you're certified to work on transfer switches or an electrician. You don't really want to be messing with these. It does have a controller here that tells you which source you're connected to. It has 2 green LEDs and 2 red LEDs. Right now it's connected to utility, or utilities available, sorry. That one's utilities available, and then it's connected to utility. And then this one's going to indicate generator available and connected to generator, which I'll actually show in a few seconds here. Other than that, there's not really much you need to see or do with this. So I'll show you how to do a test. You see the numbers here. You could hit, that one's more, it's just, you just hit the corresponding number that lines up with whatever you want to do. So here's test, which we're going to do a test. And now you can either do a fast test, which is just a fast transfer and then it transfers back. You do an actual a load transfer test, which is similar to fast test, but it doesn't transfer right back. It actually stays connected to emergency for a while. And then you have a no transfer test, which just runs the generator, but it does not transfer to the generator. Okay, so now we're going to do the transfer test, the loaded transfer test. So you hit transfer load, enter the code 121212, and then just hit that. Okay, there we go. Okay, then as you can see, the LED is lit up for generator and then lit up once we connect it to generator. So the generator is providing power for the circuits from this transfer switch. Utility is still available because we're just doing a test. If the power goes out, this light will go out and it will automatically do what we just did. So it's going to do a 15-minute test right now, but we're going to go ahead and bypass that. So now we're connected to utility power again. Generator has a built-in 5-minute cool down. Anytime that it runs, it will run 5 minutes after the loads are disconnected. Okay, so we're at the front of the generator here. This is where your fuel fill is. There's a mechanical gauge right here that'll give you approximate fuel level. And then if you open this up, this is where you actually fill the generator. Once you get to 95%, it has a little valve in here that will kick up and it'll shut off your fuel fill, so you won't be able to put any more in. So once you hit 95%, it should automatically shut off, although you don't really want to fill it past 80%. just to be safe. You have to leave room for expansion, especially on those hot days. So you don't typically want to fill it past about 80%. Okay, and then as you can see right here, there's a little plastic case right here. There's an operator's guide in here for the engine, as you can see right here. And then there will also be an operator's manual for the generator as well and the controls. Okay, so here we are. We have the remote annunciator for the generator, and we also have an annunciator for the transfer switches. You can't actually control the generator from here. This is just going to give you status of the generator. That's all this is for. As you can see right now, it's in alarm because the generator is not in auto. So it's flashing for not in auto. It's also red for system ready because the system is not ready. The common fault is because we have a high fuel level right now. But it gives you basic stuff just if it didn't start, over crank, you know, high engine temp, low oil pressure, any shutdowns, low fuel level. So if anything is wrong with the generator, it will enunciate it here. And it is alarming right now. You can silence it by doing that, as well as test the lights. Other than that, there's really not too much with this. You can't, like I said, you can't control the generator or anything. It's just going to tell you what's going on with the generator. And then here we have the annunciator for the transfer switches. Right now it's just in the monitor position, so you can actually bypass the time delays from here and also perform a test if this is in the control position. But normally you're probably just going to want to leave it in monitor. If you're going to do a test from the switches, you want to go do a test from the switches typically, just to make sure everything's working good. So it's just going to give you a status of what position the ATS is in. That's about it.